Welcome to the Brothers of the Sword Productions, Island Prophesy, Part 4, Thoth and Eclipsing Star System, that will be translated from the Legacy Message, retrieved from the now missing inscribed stone that was purportedly found in the Money Pit. This part reveals a few hidden gems about the Brothers of the Sword's beliefs, and surprisingly one name that appears in the translation of the stone that reaches back to the Egyptian god Thoth, of creation, writing, magic, wisdom, and the moon, and was born from two deities representing order and chaos for balance, healing, and judgment. All my previous translations of the stone are outlined in detail in parts 1 through 3, so if you want further information of these translations, please refer to those videos. After we finish the complete translation of the stone in this part, we'll be able to understand why I chose a particular location for a possible Oak Island treasure. This Part 4 addresses the one remaining symbol group that yet needs to be translated from the inscribed stone. In Part 3, we relied on mirror images to translate the Sword Brother's name into William Wallace, but the core of his name was a code within a code. However, we first focused on the first and last symbols of that group to identify two very common Christograms, which are abbreviated initials for the Greek spelling of the names Jesus Christ. And again, we are going to rely on the method of focusing on the first and last symbols in this next and last symbol group translation. We see that the first symbol is the Greek letter theta, and the last is called a circumpunct, which is a circle with a dot in the center. In the previous part, the circumpunct was described as a symbol for a solar or sun wheel, monad, a philosophical creation theory for the unity of God, a symbol of gold for the alchemist, but here it has another more graphic meaning because this circle with the dot is depicting an eclipsing star system. The brightness of a star dims as another star crosses its path. In reality, this is describing a triple star system that holds the satellite star gravitationally hostage quite a distance away. The first theta is the graphic image of the smaller star sliding across in front of the larger star, and the circle with the dot is the perfect world image of a star in the center of this eclipsing event. No eclipsing star perfectly aligns in front of their companion star, but this is how they thought of it and depicted it. Bizarre, you say, and unbelievable? Allow me to show you the clues that fall together to make this connection. The interesting thing about the Greek letter theta is that there are a couple different variations of the symbol, and here are a few examples of the most common forms of the letters that have existed throughout time. In fact, the archaic form of theta is actually a circle with a dot in the center. Therefore, it's indicating that the first and last symbols of this group can represent the same letter. The stone's message is in Middle English, in which we determined it to be circa 1300 to 1302, when William Wallace dropped out of the public eye for 2 years. But in this case, this symbol group translation in Middle English is the same as our modern English. If the first theta represents a T, then the translation is quite easy. It says to the circle dot, and as I just explained, The circle dot is describing an eclipsing star system. Let's review to confirm the previous symbols in this translation. In this case, theta is going to represent T, and later a TH, and mathematically is the symbol for the angle of a right triangle. And later he'll bring in some geometric shapes into the party. Most importantly, the Greek letter theta represents death. In classic Athens, theta was used as an abbreviation for the word thetanos, death, and was used as a warning symbol of death, like the skull and crossbones today. Theta has survived on ancient potsherds used by Athenians when voting for the death penalty. The reverse percent sign is the symbol of the navigational great circle that outlines the complementary latitudinal circles that are found on each side of the equator. This symbol translates into O or 0 and represents the shortest distance between 2 points on a sphere, which is the preferred route taken by ships and airplanes for a known bearing and distance. The small Greek cross is the Greek letter tau for another T that represents life and resurrection that we found while translating the Middle English word betrayin for the modern word betray, and with the RI preceding it, the very common abbreviation for king, it's saying king betrayed. The Middle English word for betray is missing the I to make the abbreviation BTR for the word brother, which complements the word sword found on the very first symbol group. So if you notice, the first theta represents death, the reverse percent sign represents the earth, and the small Greek cross, tau, represents life and resurrection. Now how interesting is that? To finish the review of this group's translation, we found that the Christogram IX translated into the Christogram IH, so therefore X equals H, and the square of the rectangle equals E. You might think at the time of the Renaissance inception, circa 1300, that the thinkers were backwater, uneducated Neanderthals. But we discovered so far from this stone's translation that William Wallace, or whomever our navigator clandestinely was educated by some type of hierophants, fluent in a number of languages, knowledgeable in mathematics and geometry, experienced with the use of the navigational great circle, and appeared to be a member of some kind of sword order. This definitely is indicating that this circle of brothers was well advanced in their knowledge of the world, and as we will see, also of the sky. I'm going to digress and review some important numbers for a while. As discussed throughout this series, all the letters in the Greek alphabet are associated to a number, and theta represents the number 9. And 2 thetas on each end of this symbol group equals 18. In part 3, we discovered that the 3 Christograms, IX and IH, and as well the IHS, symbolize the solstices of the sun when it reached the highest point in the sky at an angle of approximately 23.5 degrees. And this bit of trivia will be very important when identifying a treasure location. This particular symbolism is displayed at the Vatican St. Peter's Square, and the IX in Roman numerals equals 9, and the IH equals 18. The Greeks call 9 the horizon, which appears to be symbolic of the solstices, believing there was a nothing void that lay beyond. 9 is a very interesting number because all numbers from 9 lead back to 9, and multiples of 9, 9, 18, 27, 36, and 45, mirror the higher multiples 54, 63, 72, 81, and 90. The number 18 is a higher octave of 9, but reduces to 9 nonetheless. 9 is the sacred number of magic, completion, fulfillment, understanding, wisdom, justice, and universal truth. In Hebrew, the letter Tet is the number 9 and means good or truth. And the letters for the Hebrew word Chai add up to 18, and it means alive or living, and is considered a very spiritual number. It is the Hindu Brahman number of creation, and the Norse number of their worlds, and of their main god Odin. is considered the number for three trinities. In Tibetan Buddhism, Dzogchen is considered the great perfection and is the highest and most definitive path of 9 vehicles or ways to enlightenment. The number 9 is believed to be controlled by Mars. With its connection to Theta and death, perhaps it can be interpreted as something close to divine justice. Another number with the connection of the Sun is the addition of the value of the Greek letters for the word Theta, which equals 318, and so do the letters for the Greek word Helios, which means sun. As a caveat, the number 318 brings many astounding things into the party. 318 times pi equals 999. In the 1st century AD, the value of pi was known to 5 decimal points. Now, if the 5th decimal point was equal to 1, a circle with the circumference of any unity, and the unity number really doesn't matter. It can be 1, 10, 1,000. It just changes the decimal point around, but you end up with the diameter of a number of 318. So now if we go back and replace the 318 with the Greek letters, you get Tau for 300, Iota for 10, and Heta for 8. So now Tau means resurrection, and IH means Christ, and it equals 18. That reduces to 9. So does this mean life to death to resurrection? Now let's get to know the eclipsing star system that I introduced earlier. This triple star system in the sign of Taurus has 2 eclipsing stars that are called Algol, and is also known as the demon star, which represents the blinking eye on the head of the Gorgon Medusa that Perseus is holding in his hand. The legend goes that Medusa was minding her own business in Athenian's temple when Poseidon decided to get a little action with the beautiful temple virgin and rape the golden-haired maiden Medusa. Well, hell, she shouldn't have been hanging around the temple in the first place, and it was all her fault, the harlot that she was. And as usual, Athena blamed Medusa for this misstep and punished her by turning her into a gorgon with snakes for hair, who gazed into her eyes turned into stone, thus meaning this star system is considered evil and unlucky. The word Algol is Arabic for demon, ghoul, ghost, or spirit, and is the origin of the word alcohol for its desiccating evil spirit character. Historically, snakes represent fertility, life force, transformation, rebirth, and healing. However, to the Bible, snakes symbolize evil and represent Satan. Algol is the first known and the most famous eclipsing binary variable star system in our celestial sky that's visible to the naked eye. I'll explain the characteristics of Algol as I demonstrate the clues to solidify that Algol is actually being described in the Oak Island Stone's message. According to the Royal Astronomy Society of Canada, the best night of the year to observe Algol is November 18th. And November comes from the Latin word novium, meaning 9. During the Northern Hemisphere summers, Algol is directly opposite the Sun. And during the June solstice time, you can't see it well because you have to look past the glare of the Sun. And once again with this November 18th, you see a number 18 again. Algol is found at 26 degrees 10 minutes in the sign of Taurus, located in the Perseus constellation. And if you noted, this number for the fixed star reduces to 9. In today's lingo, the larger primary Persei A, or Algol A star, is regularly eclipsed by the smaller Persei B, or Algol B, every 2.67315 days. There is a dimming for a duration of 9 hours and 40 minutes. The outlying Persei C is just being held hostage in their gravitational field and takes 680 days to orbit around them. According to the Egyptian Cairo calendar, dated circa 1200 BC, Algol's eclipsing cycle is 2.85 days instead of the 2.867 days that we see now today. This discrepancy of 0.017 days, or 25 minutes, has been shrugged off that this could simply be a natural millennia changes between the two eclipsing stars. But to me, it is the numbers themselves. If we change the 2.85 days into hours, it comes out to 68.4 hours, and 6 plus 8 plus 4 equals 18. The last symbol group on the top line of the stone that spells out the word Deo, meaning God in Latin and Greek, translate into the numbers 9 to 10 for the 9 hours and 40 minutes of the eclipsing event. Now we're going to pull out our medieval Scribal abbreviation method that we used in part 3. The lines over the two V's in the first group of the stone implies that an M or an N is missing in some of the words and can be added. So this changes the word Deo, D-E-O, for God, into the word demon. That's pretty cool, isn't it? And once again, we go back and add up the numbers that are associated with the Greek letters and find out the word demon comes out to 99 to 100. Once again, there's two nines that equal 18. Now let's go over and revisit the second symbol group on the top line. In part 2, we made an I, an E, and an N out of the 4 dots to make a couple different words. And if you add the F on the front and the delta on the back for a D, it spells out fiend, which means demon or evil spirit. He added this just in case you missed the first demon word at the end of the line. There's another aspect I'd like to discuss about the word Deo and the letters that appear before it. If you look at the two letters preceding the word, it makes O-E-D-E-O when you put them together. And it outlines a sequence of letters that makes a palindrome, a word that reads the same forwards and backwards. And in the center is the delta symbol, which means change. I believe that he's pointing out the yew tree, which is one of the most sacred trees in Europe, and it's his primitive way of saying death, rebirth, and resurrection. Allow me to explain. The word yew in Old English is spelled E-O-W, and in Middle English E-W or E-U, and in Old Irish E-O. And in the Old English case, we can borrow the W from the two V's from the first symbol group that appear to be a wild card per se. In fact, we'll be borrowing from the V's again for another reason in this video. Yew trees are considered practically immortal because they can live from 2,000 to 3,000 years and perhaps even longer. Commonly, they grow near holy sites, churches, and cemeteries. They are the tree of the dead, symbolizing life, death, and rebirth. Strangely enough, they're extremely poisonous. The fine-grained elastic wood was commonly carved into archers' longbows. If William Wallace truly wrote this code on the Oak Island stone, he was more than familiar with the yew tree, because his personal family seal displays a Scottish lion rampant on the front and a strung bow on the back. His seal was found attached to a letter he wrote in Latin in 1297 to merchants in Lübeck, Germany, stating the ports in Scotland were free for commerce in the wake of his victory over the English at the Stirling Bridge battle. The Brothers of the Sword main hood was Livonia on the Baltic Sea and closely traded commodities with Lübeck, because the Sword Brothers was originally a German order. So how interesting is that? So the underlying message about the yew tree is immortality, boundless, everlasting, while the big overlying message is life, death, and rebirth. Now let's go back and revisit the whole symbol group again that's spelled out to the circle dot. But this time we'll use TH in place of the T for the first and last symbols of the group, which theta phonically is a TH sound. While remembering the Egyptians documented that Algol eclipsed every 2.85 days. Now once again, as the previous symbol group that translated William Wallace's name, this is going to be a code within a code. So this translates to Thoth with 285 in between it. Now how interesting is that? Although I haven't introduced the number for the small Greek cross, a plus sign, I determined it to be a number 2 in the word betray that's found in the last symbol group of the stone. In Greek, Thoth is spelled with 2 thetas and an omega in the middle. Thoth was usually depicted with the head of an ibis with the beak symbolizing the crescent moon, or a baboon holding a crescent moon. As mentioned earlier, Thoth was originally an immortal Egyptian moon god that transmuted into a creator god for writing, magic, music, religion, medicine, science, sacred knowledge, and wisdom. representing order and chaos for divine equilibrium and balance. The very famous right eye of Horus, their sky god, was associated with Ra, their sun god, and the mirror image or left eye represented Thoth. Thoth was their god of time that devised the Cairo calendar, which when associated to Algos was considered lucky days on their calendar, which is quite contrary to today's bad rap that Algol has received. Thoth conducted the calculations concerning the stars and the earth, guided the dead, and was the voice of Ra, with wisdom empowering his magic. Thoth was closely related to the Greek god Hermes for the association to words, wisdom, and the guidance of the dead. Although a number of varied legends exist, they are based on a city named Hermopolis, or the city of Hermes to the ancient Greek, or Kunum or Ogdad, meaning 8 to the Egyptians, and signifying 8 divine beings, and was the main cultural center for Thoth. So is Thoth numero uno the number 1 guy, as the creator, and the surrounding deities of 8, therefore would equal 9, and also signify the number 18? Throughout this series, we looked at the word, or the Greek concept of logos, from many different aspects, because that's what we translated from the first symbol group on the stone. This can mean the word of God, or of divine reason, implicit to the cosmos, with more of an analytical twist to it than theological. One legend abounds that Thoth created himself through the power of language, which melds well with the biblical gospel according to John, for in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. And Thoth's songs believed to have created the 8 deities, which were depicted as humans with animal heads. He was the tongue of Ra, the source of speech, the power of the spoken word, vehicle of knowledge, while using sacred words for power to rain resonance onto the humans. It's believed because of his immortality that he's appeared throughout history as various deities: Hermes, Enoch, Enki, Metatron, Quetzalcoatl, Odin, Zoroaster, as well as many more. And he appears to be associated with Jesus Christ and Allah. From the translation of this inscribed stone, please don't kill the messenger if you believe in any of these gods, who function as a divine messenger, who will show up on earth throughout time. In part 1, I mentioned Ireland's ancient Tuatha De Danann tribe, because the 2 V's in the first symbol group translated into the Roman numerals for the number 55. And if 55 degrees is used as a bearing from Oak Island with a distance of 2,610.5 miles, it takes you to the doorstep of St. Patrick's Church right next to the Hill of Tara. This is the most sacred site in Ireland for the coronation of kings with the Stone of Destiny. And also another bearing found in the inscribed stone landed over Scotland's Chapel of Scone that also used the Stone of Destiny for royal coronations. The original name of the tribe was Tuatha De without Danann, and had a number of variations: Tuatha De, Tuatha De, and Thoth De. According to ancient origins, the Thoth De translates into Thoth's crossing by using phonic comparisons, and perhaps signifies Thoth's journey by boat across the heavens by day and night. Thoth is one of the most important gods in ancient Egypt. Or to me, Thoth De or Thoth De would closely translate into Thoth God. Now let's examine the earthworks on the Hill of Tara. The 2 main circular impressions could easily depict Algol's 2 eclipsing stars, and the nearby mound of hostages could represent Persei C, the satellite star that orbits the eclipsing stars. Even the Hill of Tara itself is in the shape of an eye that could represent the blinking eye of Medusa. In the Tuatha De legends, there are 4 purported treasures: a cauldron, a spear, a stone, and a sword of light. If Wallace was trying to reproduce a cauldron on Oak Island, the cauldron would be a well, and could have been the money pit, which by the way was a well, and that's why the treasure hunters were finding coconut fibers in the money pit. I'm a geologist, and if anyone is interested how this well worked, I would be more than happy to explain its mechanics. The spear is said to be of the yew tree, and Wallace's original two-handed sword has never been found. And the stones representing the Stone of Destiny today at Hill of Tara and Scone Chapel are not considered the original stone. In 2016, an Ancient Origins article disclosed the findings of the skeletal remains of an ape on the Hill of Tara, which is puzzling because primates aren't indigenous to Ireland and could represent Thoth, who is commonly seen in baboon form. Additionally, the remains of a 15-year-old boy were unearthed from the mound of hostages dating back 3,800 years. Around the child's neck was an Egyptian fiancé beaded necklace. Fiancé is a ceramic indigenous to Egypt artisans, and in fact such beads have been also found in Scotland. The article also contends that the ancient Irish are not as closely related to Southern Europeans as thought and have Mideastern genetic connections. If what I've presented so far isn't enough, here's the pièce de résistance, because when I discovered the addition of the letters M and N for the word demon, I noticed that all of the words on the top line of the inscribed stone had 5 letters. So let's walk through the symbol groups and check out the 5 letters in each group. On line 1, the first symbol group spells word with an arrow behind it, or the W has a superimposed S for sword. The next is the word fiend, as pointed out in the video. After that, we have the word below for buy low, with the W intentionally missing to make it 5 letters. And after that, the word demon. On the second line, we have the internal code within a code, IALLA, with the number 18 appended to the end. However, the symbol group we just translated has 6 letters, so we have to pass off the circle with the dot inside it to the next group. And if we translate the circle with the dot inside it into a T, as we had previously discussed, we have T.RI. Now all lowercase a's in many languages is a circle with a small tail. So let's translate the dot into an A so we have tare. If we borrow one of the V's, since a V is equal to a U in Middle English, we have the word tari, which means bull in Latin and is another spelling of Taurus. And remember that the Algol star system is in Taurus. So okay, the first letter in the next symbol group is the B. So we have Tare B. And the B isn't necessary to make the word betray, because the word tray also means trickery or deceit. Sharing the B between these symbol groups is very similar to the above translation of sharing the delta or the D in the palindrome for the U tree spelling. So he thought of per se B or Algol B as Tare B. The above findings might shine a new light on interpreting some historical symbols and writings if this correct. And if you take the B and T away from the Middle English word betray, you have ray, which in this case means radius of a circle. Plato said that geometry will draw the soul towards truth and create the spirit of philosophy. This code seems to be doing both. In part 3, I introduced the idea of putting something in a box, and as well making a mirror image from the 2 V's with a line over them. However, this mirror image is an illusion of 2 X's, but what he really wanted you to see is 2 opposing triangles. In the next part, we'll be taking the numbers he gives us and putting inscribed circles into these triangles. Does this mean that the Eye of Providence in the Great Seal is supposed to have another triangle? And how interesting it is that we find a well cover with that particular symbol. In the next video, we'll pull out a few numbers from the Oak Island clues and see where it leads us, so stay tuned.